When cash got scarce, habits made or broke a family. Two families, same street. One ended 1939 debt-free. The other ended homeless. The difference wasn't income. It was how they handled it. Some created community buy clubs. Others chased false security in cash and credit. What 7 daily choices drew the line between collapse and comeback, and still could today. Best, the envelope budget that closed every week. Money in the 1930s didn't stretch far, but the people who made it last had a system carved out of necessity, not luxury. Every dollar had a job before it was even earned. Families labeled plain brown envelopes with words that meant survival. Rent, groceries, coal, school fees, doctor. When payday came, cash was divided by hand, right there on the kitchen table. Once an envelope was empty, the week was over. No borrowing from the next. No quiet IOUs. No wishful thinking. The money lived and died within those paper folds. Every Sunday evening came the ritual everyone dreaded but respected. Closing the week. Lamps dimmed, pencils sharpened, ledgers opened. Fathers tallied coins, while mothers penciled margins. 12 cents left for sugar. Milk short 2 days. Children learned early that math wasn't about numbers. It was about choices. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real accountability, measured in dimes and discipline. According to the Federal Home Loan Bank's 1934 Consumer Report, families using envelope budgeting stayed solvent 30% longer than those who relied on mental math. That's what consistency did, turned chaos into order. The real secret was psychological. The physical act of touching money, counting it, feeling it leave your hand. It anchored spending in reality. Every envelope carried emotional weight. If groceries ran low, you saw it, you felt it. That visual restraint built habits that even modern financial planners admire. Historian Susan Strasser called it the most democratic form of accounting ever invented. No training needed, just willpower and envelopes. There's even a record of a family in Toledo who logged 1,642 cash entries over 2 years, balancing every nickel by hand without a single missed bill. That's discipline the Depression couldn't destroy. It worked because it created rhythm, a rhythm stronger than fear. But for every family closing their week with order, another spent next month's wages on a radio or silk dress, and learned too late that comfort on credit was a trap waiting to snap shut. Worst, buying on installment for things that didn't last. By the early 1930s, easy payment was the buzzword that promised dignity without delay. You could walk out of a store with a new radio, silk dress, or even a week's worth of groceries just by signing a slip. The salesman smiled, the payments looked small, and everyone believed next month would be better. But the Depression didn't care about next month. Installment plans spread fast after 1925. By 1929, 8 out of 10 radios and 6 out of 10 cars were bought on time. It felt like progress, but the trap came later. When layoffs hit, collectors followed. The repo man became a regular sight, hauling furniture from porches and radios from windows. The humiliation ran deep. Families would hide their new sewing machines under blankets, hoping inspectors would pass by. The numbers were staggering. In 1931 alone, over 2 million installment accounts defaulted. Stores lost stock they could no longer resell. Banks wrote off small debts in bulk. Entire neighborhoods slipped into quiet panic, realizing their kitchens and living rooms had become collateral. Credit looked like freedom until it turned into a leash. What made it worse was what people bought. Things that rotted, rusted, or ran out. Food, clothes, perishables. You can't repossess a roast or a sack of flour, but you can still owe for it. Families learned the hard way that borrowing for consumables meant paying twice for what never lasted. This habit, once encouraged by advertising, became a national cautionary tale. Journalists in the Saturday Evening Post called it America's silent addiction. By 1934, even the government stepped in, launching the first campaigns warning citizens to pay cash or do without. Therefore, when one group fell into debt, another quietly mastered the opposite, saving for disasters before they arrived, and turning small habits into shields against chaos. Best, sinking funds that stopped emergencies. Cold. Most people think saving means building one big pile of money. But in the 1930s, smart families did something different. They built many small piles. Each one had a name, a reason, and a future date attached. That method, called a sinking fund, turned big problems into small, predictable payments. Households would set aside a few coins each week, labeled taxes, roof repair, or even funeral. When the time came, they didn't panic. They already had the cash. One Illinois family told the Chicago Daily News in 1933 that they avoided eviction twice by using their rent reserve envelope, $3 a week tucked away, untouched, for 12 months straight. It was simple, but it saved them when neighbors were begging for extensions. Some communities took it further. Towns in Ohio and Iowa formed sinking clubs, where 10 or 12 families pooled small amounts into one pot for emergencies. If someone's well pump broke or a doctor bill hit hard, the fund stepped in. Members tracked contributions in little red ledgers, signed and stamped each month. By 1935, there were over 4,000 of these informal clubs registered through local churches and co-ops. Experts noticed the results. The Federal Relief Administration reported that households with organized, sinking funds relied 60% less on government aid than others in similar income brackets. It proved something powerful. Predicting your own bad luck could be the best insurance of all. There was pride in it, too. People said having a tax envelope meant they could sleep without worry. It turned survival into structure, chaos into calm. However, while some planned for what might go wrong, others grew afraid of losing everything. And instead of saving safely, they started burying their trust and their cash deep in the ground. Worst, hiding every dollar in mattresses and mason jars. Fear spread faster than any virus after the banks collapsed in 1930. Headlines about bank runs and closed vaults made people swear off banks completely. Trust vanished. So they turned their homes into vaults, literally. Dollars went into coffee tins, tobacco boxes, and flour sacks. Some even stitched bills into curtains or buried jars in gardens. It felt safe at first, but time and chance have a cruel sense of humor. In just 9 years, the Treasury estimated that over $30 million in hidden cash either burned, rotted, or was simply never found. Fires were the biggest killer. When a small house in Missouri went up in flames in 1935, firefighters found hundreds of melted silver coins fused into the floorboards. A man in Ohio lost his savings after a mouse chewed through the jar lid and moisture turned his notes to pulp. These stories weren't rare. They became warnings printed in newspapers. Families believed keeping money close meant control, but control turned into isolation. Banks that survived the crash, especially local ones, were offering insured accounts by 1934 under the new FDIC law. Yet many refused to go back. One Kansas farmer told a reporter, "I'd rather lose it to time than to trust." That mindset killed more futures than bad luck. The irony is, by avoiding loss, they lost more. Hidden money couldn't earn interest, couldn't grow, couldn't even move. Economists later found that hoarded cash slowed recovery by billions nationwide. However, a few families broke that cycle by doing something bold. They didn't hoard or gamble. They worked more. They built a rule for every side dollar earned. They gave every spare coin a mission. And for some, that rule paid off their debts years ahead of schedule. Best, side hustles dedicated entirely to debt. Many Depression-era families didn't dream of riches. They just wanted to get out of debt alive. What made some succeed while others sank came down to one quiet rule. Every side job had a purpose, and that purpose was debt. They didn't mix that money with grocery cash or rent. It was sacred, set aside, tracked, and untouchable. Farmers sold extra eggs or butter straight to lenders. Barbers cut hair on Sundays for mortgage money. Teachers tutored after school. Each dime logged in small ledgers marked loan payment only. It looked small, nickels, quarters, but the system worked. One Iowa farmer cleared a $600 equipment debt in 2 years using only egg money. No loans, no windfalls, just grit and repetition. This method had logic behind it. Psychologists later called it mental partitioning, but Depression families just called it survival. They gave every dollar a name before it was earned. The separation killed temptation. No chance to borrow from future freedom. Even small wins felt massive. One widow in Nebraska mailed her final payment to the bank in 1936 with a note that read, "Paid with broom money." The teller framed it on the wall. That mindset turned side work into structure. It gave meaning to long hours, to blisters, to double shifts. You could endure anything when you knew where the money would go. In many towns, whole families joined forces. Kids collected scrap. Mothers sewed or ironed. Fathers took carpentry. Together they chipped away at numbers that once looked impossible. Therefore, when others drowned in job loss, these few treated debt like an enemy they could starve. But for every disciplined earner, there were families who gambled everything on one paycheck, one trade, or one fragile skill. And that bet broke more homes than any bank ever did. Worst, depending on one income, one skill, or one asset. When the Depression hit, too many families were tied to one paycheck, one trade, one lifeline. And when that snapped, everything went down with it. The coal miner, whose shaft closed, the banker, whose branch folded, the tailor whose clients vanished, all faced the same silent truth. One income meant no defense. By 1932, unemployment touched 25% nationwide, roughly 13 million Americans out of work. In places like Detroit, the number doubled. Men who once earned $2 a day now stood in bread lines that stretched 6 city blocks. It wasn't about laziness, it was about dependence. The economy had punished those who never built a second string. Whole towns learned the hard way that even property could vanish in value. Farmers lost land when wheat prices fell below 40 cents a bushel. Teachers, once secure, went months without pay as schools ran out of funds. Families who had no side skill or trade had nothing to trade. It was financial freefall without a parachute. Some tried to pivot. Barbers learned carpentry. Seamstresses took up laundry work, but many lacked tools or training. There were programs like Roosevelt's WPA workshops, teaching new trades, but competition was fierce. A line for welding class in Chicago in 1935 wrapped around the block before sunrise. People were desperate to matter again. However, the survivors didn't rely on luck. They spread their effort wide, multiple small incomes, instead of one fragile wage. One historian called it the mosaic economy. Every piece mattered. A bit of garden produce sold, a few repairs done for neighbors, small things that added up to breathing room. And that idea, pooling, sharing, multiplying, became something much bigger next. Because a few clever families discovered that survival worked even better when the neighborhood joined in. Best, community buying clubs that cut prices in half. When individual wallets ran dry, neighbors started thinking like a team. They called them buying clubs. It began small, 3 or 4 families pooling cash for flour or beans. But by 1933, these groups were feeding entire blocks. The math was simple. Bulk buying meant factory prices, not store prices. And when every penny mattered, that difference meant dinner. In one Ohio town, a group of 20 families formed the Consumers Cooperative. Each paid 50 cents to join, and together they ordered 50-pound flour sacks straight from the mill. They saved 40% overnight. The club later added coffee, soap, and lamp oil. Members took turns storing goods in their basements, marked with chalk notes. Who bought what? Who owed a few cents? It was trust with structure. Church basements and school halls often became club hubs. A 1935 survey by the Department of Agriculture found over 7,000 cooperatives operating nationwide. Many traced their roots to Depression hardship. People even created their own local scrip, small printed notes used to trade within the group when cash ran out. It turned scarcity into circulation. These clubs ran on discipline, not charity. You paid in before you took out. They voted on what to buy next: sugar, salt, oats, and even ran ledgers like miniature banks. Some grew so efficient that small store owners complained they couldn't compete. But buying clubs didn't care about profit. They cared about fairness. However, what truly made them powerful was the mindset shift. People stopped waiting for help and built their own safety net. By the end of the 1930s, some cooperatives had evolved into permanent community stores, the roots of modern credit unions and food co-ops. That final habit, shared responsibility, became the quiet bridge from survival to recovery. It proved that even when money failed, people could still invest in each other. Thanks for watching and keeping these stories alive. If you found something worth remembering, subscribe and stay close, because the next lesson from history's hardest years starts right after this.